Well, good Monday morning to you, and welcome to our live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Dr. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition, located on Cowan Road in Gulfport, just south of Pass Road. Now, our phone lines are 896-0713, 800-349-0713 for you to call in and talk about, well, today's subject, or if you have a question in particular about something else maybe across your mind, you're having issues with, and you've been waiting for us to come on all weekend long.
All weekend,
that's right.
yes.
Just waiting.
Waiting, as they say, with bated breath.
Waiting
right?
with bated breath, yes.
Right.
See that out, or you ate too much sushi last week.
Right.
Anyway, fatigue is what we're talking
Yes.
about this morning. You know, did you wake up, feeling like you didn't sleep? Maybe you're having some problems with, people have that problem. They just wake up and it's like, man, I just feel like I just fell asleep. You know, an hour ago because you didn't get a good night's sleep, or you have problems with memory or concentrating, aches and pains. I mean, there's so many different things that are associated with fatigue nowadays, and that people don't think about. They think, well, I'm just running myself down, this and that, and
there's so many things that can be the cause of fatigue. And that was one of the, that probably the one symptom, if we hear more than anything, wouldn't you say, is I'm tired. I mean, that'd probably be the number one symptom that we hear from everybody is I'm tired. And like, today we're going to talk about a lot of different things that can cause fatigue, because sometimes there's underlying problems. It's not just being run down. You might be run down because there is something going on. And we hear constantly people saying, well, I went to my doctor, they said everything's fine, but I'm so tired, so they were going to put me on an antidepressant, but I'm not depressed. And so fatigue is not always depression.
well, I would think that if you put somebody on an antidepressant, that would make you more tired. Well, no, I'm thinking of depressant. I'm just thinking of depressant.
And occasionally,
but even
antidepressant will bounces you off the wall.
There are times where fatigue is a symptom of depression, but not necessarily. It doesn't have to be. So that's one thing that we see a lot, or people actually, say, well, am I depressed? I really don't feel depressed, but I'm so tired. And fatigue is not always depression.
That's true. I think that's the biggie is, today in America, we have so many reasons that are, the problem, so to speak, for underlying problems, for fatigue. And yet you go to your doc and they probably won't check any lab work. If they do, it's going to be minimal because the insurance companies don't like to pay for it. So there you go. And then they'll say, well, okay, we'll just give you an antidepressant. Excuse me? That's not really what's going on. Physically, there's something that may not be right. Now, it could be, you could be anemic.
Anemia is one
Big
thing.
one,
I even have people come in and their main symptom is fatigue. And I say something about being, oh, well, I know I'm anemic. And I'm like, well, okay, there's your problem.
You go.
And, oh, well, I can't take iron. I hear that a lot because a lot of women say, well, iron makes me sick. And of course, most of our anemia that we see is in women in childbearing years, because that's the most common. That's when it's probably a lot of it. When you see anemics in older people, then you have to think what's causing it.
Right.
But in young women having cycles, it's not that uncommon. And they think being a little anemic is okay. Well, being a little anemic will just make you really tired. And there are other kinds of iron that don't make you sick. So we use a type of iron called bisglycinate that doesn't make, hurt your stomach and make constipation. And there's all kind of problems with iron. A lot of times people don't want to take it. Now, iron is not something, we also see the other end of that. People saying, I'm tired, so I started taking a bunch of iron. That is not what you want to do when you're tired, because if you don't need iron, iron can make it worse.
Yeah. Sure
and
can.
yes, iron, you can have, 7% of all men have iron overload, which will also make you tired. So you can't just say, I'm tired, I need to take this, or I need to take, because you got to check it. And that's why we do so much lab work, because you don't know if you need it. I
don't want to say poor Brooke. Brooke stays running sometimes. They're always doing lab work.
Yeah, she does.
Of course, you don't do lab work on Fridays.
No, we don't. We do lab work except for the last Friday of the month.
Yeah, the last Friday of the month. She's
we
off
do
on last Friday.
Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Except,
you do. Okay.
Yeah, except for the last Friday of the month.
Yeah.
And so doing the lab work is one of the things we want to talk about for fatigue, because there's so many reasons, of course, that you can have fatigue. And like I said, anemia is just one of them. Right. Vitamin D deficiency. It is something that we see even in our sunny area, which we are in the south with lots of sun. And I would say probably 70% of the people that we check are vitamin D deficient.
Really?
Right.
And that's, yes. And most
it's
of the
ones.
Scary.
That is surprising.
Yeah.
I would think that, being, as you said, living here in the south, that you wouldn't have that much. I would think, well, maybe 30% or something, because as much as people get outside, they out on the water or whatever.
And the majority of the people that are not vitamin D deficient is because they're taking it. You know, and the
They're
people that
actually
we see,
supplementing it,
they're
right.
already supplementing, is why they're not deficient. So we do see a lot of that. And vitamin D deficiency will make you very fatigued and very aching pains all over. And I mean, you can have all kind of symptoms, and it's a vitamin D deficiency. Yeah. And we're seeing that even in kids. I mean, I've even heard there's.
Well, I know the reason for that, because kids don't get out and play
true.
like they
like
when
they
we
used
were
to.
kids. I mean, I mean that's
Yeah.
you see this all the time. When we were kids, we were outside until the lights came on along the street, or your mom started my mom would always blow the horn on the car, then you go running home. Just wonder where you were, right down the street, Mom, with some friend's house. But that's the problem. I mean, kids are sitting inside nowadays, and they're just sitting there with the PlayStation, the machines, and all the electronics. They don't get out and play.
So we do see it even in kids. Now, another big vitamin deficiency that we're seeing that makes a lot of fatigue is B12 deficiency.
I was going to
that
ask
was
about
really
that,
common.
B12.
Yeah. Really common, and you'd think that over time with people would be associating or understand that, okay, I got to get my B12, but they don't. And when you look at the average multivitamin, the amount of B12 that's in it is scary small.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's not enough to help with a deficiency. So. And people are getting away from red meat and things like that. And so, of course, getting away from red meat's your best source of B12. You cannot get it from a vegetable source either.
I had a caller call in, wanted to know what is the proper diet to help IBS, as they take probiotics, and it has helped some. I take 200 billigrams daily.
Billion.
Probably a billion.
Billion-grams.
Okay, a milligram, right.
If it's 200 billion colony forming units, that is enough probiotics.
That's adequate,
so that is an adequate amount of probiotics.
But when you start talking, people ask about IBS all the time, and they say, okay, what's the best diet for me for IBS? Okay, write this down. Stop all grains. Okay, if it's made with a grain, that means bread. There's not a good bread for you. Cereals, rice, corn. Okay, all the grains, wheat, etc. Just stop those.
And dairy.
And dairy is another biggie. Yeah. Because the dairy. Well, we could do 10
now that's
shows
just kind
on
of
dairy.
a blanket thing for somebody with IBS. IBS can be from any food allergy.
It can.
So unfortunately, sometimes your food allergy could be like. We both have one for broccoli. But believe it or not, I mean, it can be something that's good for you normally, and you have a food allergy to it.
I finally got a reason not to eat this stinking stuff,
But
never really liked it, one of those things, but it's good for you, so I'd eat it.
But you do have to look sometimes if you we always say cut out the grains and cut out the dairy, and if that doesn't help, then you got to start looking at food allergies. And there is that FODMAP diet.
Yeah, well, that's a really biggie.
And it is, and it does eliminate most of your grains.
It really does.
And it's one that a lot of in medicine is using now, and it's even looking at how food's fermenting in your stomach and how it's broken down and how much sugar it has in it, and it goes into detail. So that would be, it's really hard to tell you at one time what it has.
Okay. All right. We're going to get back to you in just a moment. Sarah from Moss Point's on the phone. Sarah, hang on. We're going to take a commercial break here, pay a couple of bills, and we'll be right back with your call here on our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy. And welcome back to our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Drs. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition, located on Cowling Road in Gulfport, just south of Pass Road. Our phone lines are 896-0713, 800-349-0713 if you have a question for the doctors. And Sarah from Moss Point, thank you for holding, Sarah. You have a question for the doctors.
Yes, I do. I was wondering if they could tell me something to do or what to do for restless leg syndrome.
One of the things that you need to do, Sarah, is find out if you're iron deficient, because that can be an issue with that and some of the other minerals too.
And so it can be magnesium, potassium, B12 deficiency. It can be iron deficiency. There's so many things that can cause restless leg. And the first thing we usually do, and I have many people that have restless leg that come in, and they think they've already been checked for these things, and they haven't. When we check them, we find the problem. So that's the first thing to do, is to get checked for those deficiencies. If the deficiencies are not there, then we have to do other stuff for calming the nervous system in the legs, and sometimes it's even a back problem. So we've even seen some back problems cause restless leg. So it really, I hate to say, I mean, it depends on what your lab work looks like.
Well, it's like anything else, Janine. You and I talk about this all the time to people. People say, well, what do you do for like restless leg, like Sarah's got? Okay, you had to find out, or try to find out at least, what's causing it. You don't just throw something at it, and that's...
Yeah, we don't use a one-size-fits-all for all conditions. Like for this, you do this, and for this, you do that. Because to me, a computer can do that. I mean, You have this, you got to look at all the symptoms, and then you got to do some lab work, and then you got to correlate it together and see what looks like it's causing the problem. So, but usually you can find a cause in most people that come in.
Typically
So
speaking, you're right.
the best thing to do is maybe come by, and even if you've had some other lab work, bring it in, let us look at it.
Yeah, it's a good starting point. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you for the call. 896-0713, 800-349-0713. We're talking about fatigue today and some of the things that you can do to help yourself or find out if that exactly is what you're dealing with. And you talked a lot about iron deficiencies.
Yeah, but you know, there's so many other things, you know, like for instance, and we've talked about, I think we had a whole show on thyroid.
Right,
yeah.
And in the adrenal function, you know, those are two biggies that we see a lot.
Anything in the endocrine system, which your endocrine system is your hormone production system, whether it be your sex hormones, your adrenal hormones, your thyroid hormones. When those are off, it causes a problem. And you know, a lot of people automatically say, "I'm tired. It must be my thyroid." Well, it's not always the thyroid, and sometimes it is the adrenals. And then some people say, "Oh, it's got to be my thyroid. It's probably underactive." Well, sometimes it's overactive, and it can make. If your thyroid is overactive, it makes fatigue. So I even have people that's on medication for thyroid, and they come in thinking, I need more medication, or they even bump it up themselves. And we tell people never do that. Never just bump your thyroid, because they'll come in, they've bumped it up themselves, and they're not feeling any better. And when we check them, I'm like, man, you were taking you were so overactive. And oh, well, I thought if I'm tired, it has to be under. Well, no. Fatigue can go both ways. Same thing with adrenals. Low adrenals make fatigue. High adrenals make fatigue. That's why we tell people you really can't tell without lab work. You can't just...
And the human body is a very complex machine.
Well, it is, you know, and you can't just, you know, I always tell people, you know, I'm not psychic. I wish I were, but I'm not. So we have to do something like lab work to find out what's going on, because, you know, if I were psychic, I'd look, okay, you need so-and-so.
But winning the lottery, wouldn't you?
I could win the lottery, right. And I haven't done that yet either. So, you know, but, you know, you have to do the lab work. You have to dig in there and kind of find out what's going on.
Yeah. Betty from Wool Market is on the phone with us. Good morning, Becky. Betty, you have a question for the doctors.
Betty?
Hello.
Oh, yes. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Good
How
morning.
are you?
Oh, I can hardly hear you. I was asking about leg cramps at night.
Okay.
A lot of leg cramps at night are due to various mineral deficiencies, magnesium being one of the biggies, sometimes potassium, but a lot of magnesium, because what is it, 70-something% of the population is deficient in magnesium.
And we usually, if somebody comes in with leg cramps, we will tell them if they, if they don't want to do the lab work, we'll actually do something called Citramins 2, which is a multi-mineral formula, which in many cases that helps. And then, but you know, then if it doesn't, you got to start looking at other things. But that is something. Usually, minerals are one of the reasons for leg cramps.
Typically speaking. Hope that helps, Betty.
Now, as we age, just about the leg cramps, as we age, the more do we see that problem with the leg cramps?
Well, I think so, yes. For one, because as you age, you don't absorb things as well. There's no doubt that kids have better absorption from the stomach and intestines than we do. I mean, they have a better digestive tract. They have a better. It really does make a difference as you age. So we do see more mineral deficiencies a lot of times.
And the diet is really. You know, what the average person doesn't realize, you know, that, and anybody that tells you, oh, just eat a good diet and you'll be okay. Yeah, buddy. That's not true for sure. Because, you know, when you look at whatever, you know, and first off, you'd have to define what is a good diet. And a good diet is going to be real food. Okay, it's nothing in a package, nothing processed. Okay, it's got to be real food. Stuff that you're going to find on that periphery of the grocery store, you're going to have to chop, slice, dice, you know, fix it yourself kind of thing. That's real food. And that's what you're going to have to do to get any nutrients. And even then, if you don't get something that's grown organically or try to get as much of that as you can, you're still probably going to be mineral deficient.
And even then, it depends on the soil. It depends on what vegetable you're eating, what the soil had in it that it was grown in, because magnesium is very deficient in our soil today. So that's one reason why you see magnesium as a very big deficiency.
It really is.
896-0713, 800-349-0713. If you have a question for the doctors regarding our subject this morning, which is fatigue, you having problems with that, you feel like you know, after you slept all night, when you wake up the next morning and you're just like, oh, I'm so tired. It's fatigue.
Right. And then, you know, another thing that can actually cause it that's a very common problem is the insulin resistance and the metabolic syndrome and the pre-diabetes and the diabetes. We see a lot of that.
Yeah.
And their main symptom is normally fatigue as well.
Yeah.
So they come in saying, I'm fatigued, you know, I just don't feel well. They may even have leg cramping, a lot of the people that come in that have the blood sugar issues. And so when we check them when they're pre-diabetic or diabetic, changing the diet's one of the best things you can do. So of course, like we talk about, if you get off of sugar and grains, and you'll see a big difference in your energy levels.
Wow. Alpha from Moss Point is on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Alpha. You have a question for the doctors?
Yes, I do. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to know what kind of medication over the counter could you recommend for fish, like fish oil? I was prescribed Levazo at one point in time, and it had such a strong odor. It just came through your pores, your hair, and everything.
We do have a fish oil that is the same strength as Levazo. There's actually two prescription fish oils, and it's Levazo and Omicor. And we have one, but it has a lemon oil with it, and the lemon oil helps cut that fishiness. So I can say that's one that our fish oil, and it's cold distilled. So it's distilled, so it removes all the contaminants, and it is that high strength, because if you were prescribed that medication, it tells me you have a problem that needs the high dose fish oil, not just a low dose fish oil.
Right.
Because probably high triglycerides is what most people
typically
are
that's what
prescribed
it's used
it
for. Right.
So we have one, and most people don't have the problem with the fishiness. If people can't take our fish oil, we recommend krill. But krill does cost a little bit more, but the fish oil that we have is much less expensive than Levazo as well. So definitely we have one, and if you can't make it over to Gulfport, you can give us a call and we can ship it to you.
Right.
All right. Thanks, Alpha. We'll take a break. We'll be right back with this week's special, 896-0713, 800-349-0713. Our phone lines, you still have time to call in with your question this morning for the doctors. And welcome back to our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi. Live healthy, be healthy with Dr. Jim and Janine Fox of Doctors Nutrition. They're located on Cowan Road in Gulfport, just south of Pass Road. They are open Monday through Friday from 10 to 5, Saturdays from 11 to 2. Jim and Janine are there on Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Dr. Mays is there on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Right.
And everybody else is there all week, except for Saturday.
That's right.
And a great staff of people there. They, very knowledgeable. So, but anyway, we are talking about fatigue today and some of the things that you can do if you are suffering from some of the conditions that you might have. And again, one of the good things we always talk about, there's no telling what could be causing it that you may have a lack of or too much of.
Right.
Either way.
Best thing to do is go get some blood work done.
Right, that's the best thing, because that will show you what's going on. And so we do our expanded panel is probably what I would suggest with people with fatigue. And if you're having possible hormonal issues, we can add the hormones to it. A lot of men get fatigued when they have low testosterone, and we're seeing an epidemic of that. But the epidemic of low testosterone, a lot of it's coming from the pre-diabetes and diabetes, because that condition lowers testosterone, makes fatigue. So it's all a lot of times it's one thing causing a cascade of problems, and it can cause a few things to be off.
Sure can. And even like you mentioned waking up feel like you haven't slept. Even sleep or lack of sleep can be a
definitely
issue.
lack
So
of sleep
there's
can be
another thing. Something we're doing now. We of course we do this show once a week, but on if you go to our website, we have a podcast that we're doing, and right now we're doing a 10-part series
on fatigue.
Wow.
So,
so it's 10 different shows, because fatigue takes, each segment, could take 30 minutes to talk about each thing. So we've done a podcast, and I think we're on the second segment right now.
We finished the second one up.
Right,
and
but every week we'll be doing a new one. So if you want to get online, we can go to our website, doctorsnutrition.com or doctorsnutritionmedia.com, and just click on our podcast, and it'll take you to it. Or you can go to Podbean and look up Live Healthy, Be Healthy with Doctors Nutrition.
But it's easiest just go right to our website, and from there you can actually get this show is archived on there too. So you can go back and look at that. But the fatigue is such a big issue that we decided to do a whole series on it, because like I say, you take the anemias and and all the various parts
the
and
immune
things.
system. If you have liver problems, you're going to be tired. If you have kidney problems, you're going to be tired. If you have heart problems, you're going to be tired. So fatigue is just what we kind of wanted to get across. Is that
Stress.
alone?
Stress, big one.
Well,
stress
affects the adrenals, and the adrenals definitely.
We were talking about stress before we came on the start of the show this morning.
Definitely make fatigue when you talk about, like I said, when you stress. And that's what we find. A lot of people's problems today are driven by stress.
But you know, yeah, but we live in a stressful time. You know,
Yep.
I mean, it really is. So.
What are some of the best foods to increase iron?
Well, of course, red meat's number one.
Red meat,
Spinach.
of course, spinach. Liver is one of your best sources of iron if you really want to get to it, but you really want an organic source of liver if you're going to eat it.
Yeah,
So I guess fried chicken livers is not it. That
well, if
it was organic, but you can't find them around here.
Yeah,
organic chickens. Okay.
Yeah.
Organic chickens or chicken liver. Yeah, you know, that's the key to the whole thing about the liver. I mean, that's where everything is stored in the body, whether it's in our body or in the chicken or beef or whatever. And so if you can get an organic raised chicken, cow, pig, whatever, that beef or that liver is going to be the nutrient warehouse to go to.
Right, and it has the highest source of iron.
Right.
But I mean, when you look at it, I mean, other sources of iron, you can even get iron from chicken, but it needs to be the dark meat, not the white meat, because iron makes things dark.
And I always thought the white meat was the best part for you.
It's lower in fat and stuff like that, but when it comes to iron, there's not as much iron in the white as the dark, because think about iron is really dark colored.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost black.
Well, so
it's going to make any meat darker. It's going to make your dark greens have iron because they
spinach
spinach is your better absorbable source of iron.
Right.
A lot of the greens have iron, but spinach tends to be one of the ones you can get it out of the best.
You know, when you start looking at iron, you know, the thing about iron is it's an oxidizer. You know, everybody's really hung up on, I got to take my antioxidants. And you have to realize that iron is the number one oxidizer that we ingest. So, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, you want to eat these foods, but you also want to eat the foods that have the high antioxidant levels too.
And that's why you don't want to just go take a bunch of iron if you don't need it, because too much iron starts storing in your organs and cause all kind of problems.
Right, sure can.
So, but, you know, there are a lot of foods that you can get iron from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this week's special.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we actually got kind of a neat thing.
It's a new product.
It's
actually.
a new product.
Energize.
It's called Energize Pure Pack. And Pure Encapsulation is one of our companies. They just sell to the physicians, but they're a really good company. And they put this thing together where it's a pack that various vitamins, nutrients, and so on. You open it up. I think there's like 7 or 8 pills.
I think there's 7 pills in a pack.
So you just open that little pack at breakfast.
Take it all.
Yeah, take everything, and it's designed for energy down to a cellular level.
Right, the cellular. It gives you things like extra CoQ10 and carnitine and extra vitamin D, and then of course a full multivitamin and adequate amounts of B12 and B vitamins. Stuff that you need, nutrients that you need for energy.
Right.
Now, like I said, it's not for specific. Like I said, if there is an underlying thyroid problem, it may not give you energy. But it's more about energy at the cellular level, and it's a multi. So it would be in place of a multivitamin.
Right.
Yeah, except it does not have iron because it is made where anyone can take it, and most of the time men don't need iron and women after childbearing years don't need iron. Usually. Now, there's always those exceptions, but you never want to take iron unless you need it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Got about maybe a little bit over a minute left. 896-0713, 800-349-0713. Next week is the first Monday of the month.
Right.
It's gonna be
Open Line Monday.
Open Line Monday.
All about anything.
Which is, you know, I know a lot of people are kind of hesitant about calling in during this time if they don't have anything to ask about the daily subject. But don't ever let that keep you from calling. But remember, the great thing about going by Doctor's Nutrition there on Cowan Road in Gulfport, south of Pass Road, is you don't need an appointment. Consultations are absolutely free.
Right.
Right.
I don't know of any other medical office that will do anything
Monday,
like that.
Tuesday, and Thursday. So if you have
Dr.
any
Mays is
questions,
there.
and if you've already had lab work, bring in what you have.
Yeah.
It's free for us to take a look at it and see what we think, and we may say, well, this wasn't checked or this wasn't checked, or we might say, oh, here, we think this might be the problem. So bring in your lab work and we'll look at it for you.
And if you need lab work done, well, you can get it
do
done
that.
You
right
can definitely do it right there.
Right, sure can.
there. Brookie Wookie can do that for you.
That's right.
Anyway, I'm still fighting this sinus stuff. Spring changes here. Anyway, we'll see you next Monday.